Can love truly conquer societal barriers, or are some obstacles too great for even the strongest of hearts? The grand ballroom shimmered with the glow of 1,000 candle flames, the flickering light catching on gilded chandeliers, crystal goblets, and the intricate embroidery of gowns and uniforms. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and polished wood, mingled with whispered intrigues that rippled beneath the polite laughter and measured clinks of porcelain. Elena stood near the edge of the room, her auburn hair gleaming like spun gold under the candlelight, yet her eyes-piercing green and wary were fixed on the center of the opulent space. Music swelled, a haunting waltz weaving through the crowd as couples circled with practiced grace, the polished marble floor reflecting their twirling feet. Elena's breath hitched as Prince Cedric approached, his identity lighting the room like a tempestuous sun. Dressed in regal blue embroidered with silver, his presence was magnetic. But as his gaze locked on hers, expectation twisted into something cold, and his words shattered the fragile moment. "My prince," she murmured, her voice trembling with hope. Cedric's eyes flickered with boredom before settling sharply. "Lady Elena," he began, voice laced with condescension, "your efforts are noted, but the court requires alliances, not quaint designs." Her stomach clenched as the court's attention shifted, murmurs rippling like a sudden chill wind through the crowd. A noblewoman in crimson laughed softly, exchanging glances loaded with disdain. The orchestra's crescendo painted over the whispers, but Elena caught each jab silent daggers that pierced deeper than any blade. "Come, my lord," a voice called softly. Cedric turned, dismissing Elena with a tilt of his head, his smile sharp yet hollow. "The evening awaits those more suitable." Elena's refuge shifted into trepidation as she watched him glide away, arm encircling the waist of a woman adorned in jewels and silk more vivid and lavish than the roses in the palace gardens. The contrast was undeniable. The handmaiden, in her simple gown of muted cream and delicate lace, against the opulence of nobility, her dreams eclipsed by a world that whispered and shouted that her place was elsewhere. Murmurs turned to whispers, whispers to pointed glances. A child's solid footsteps echoed nearby. Elena's eyes briefly met those of a young page, who quickly looked away, embarrassed by association. Her cheeks burned. Shame and isolation wove tight in her chest, a heavy tapestry of rejection. A raven perched atop the balcony's balustrade, its black feathers irreverent against the gilded marble and glowing torches. Its sharp call pierced through the murmurs, a discordant note symbolizing an omen's secrets bound to unravel, loyalties to be tested. Elena's fingers clenched the delicate embroidered handkerchief sewn into her sleeve, a small comfort amid the swirling storm of humiliation and sorrow. She took a tentative breath, the waltz's haunting melody a bittersweet hymn to lost possibility. The ballroom's mirrors caught her reflection, layers of poised facade and unspoken yearning interlaced with flickers of vibrant green. In the fractured glass, the handmaiden glimpsed not just disdain but the stirrings of defiance, a hidden ember smoldering beneath polished etiquette. The night deepened. The court's dances swirled, but Elena felt the weight of solitude settle like dusk upon her shoulders. The final flicker of a candle guttered, shadows stretching long and stark across marble, echoing the promise of battles silent and fierce. She lingered, alone yet unwelcome, a solitary figure poised between the world she inhabited and the one she dared to dream of, a story yet unwritten, whispered on the breath of royal secrets and forbidden love. A slow, bitter sigh escaped her lips just as the first crowing of ravens heralded the coming dark, the air thick with foreboding yet alive with the pulse of change. The heavy oak doors slammed shut behind Elena, their dark wood swallowing the golden light from the grand ballroom. The distant hum of music and polite laughter faded into a muffled, oppressive silence. She leaned against the cold, stone wall of the palace corridor, her chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. The sumptuous tapestries and polished marble were indifferent to her torment, a stark contrast to the storm raging within. Her fingers trembled slightly as she clutched the hem of her simple gownet's delicate cream fabric, a quiet rebellion against the ornate silks and velvets worn by the court. Her auburn hair, carefully braided in the morning, now fell in loose waves down her back, tangled and defiant as her spirit wavered. The echo of Prince Cedric's dismissive words haunted her. His glance flitted away, seeking the company of wealth and status, leaving her exposed, a servant dismissed like a shadow. The murmurs in the ballroom lingered in her ears, a chorus of scorn and disbelief that swallowed her whole. Tears, warm and bitter, pricked the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them away fiercely. Shame was a cloak heavy with the chill of rejection. It pressed into her skin, whispering cruel certainties about her place in this glittering, ruthless world. The corridor stretched endlessly ahead, dark and winding, a labyrinth of secrets and whispered betrayals. Alina's footsteps echoed softly, a solitary rhythm against the silence. With each step, doubt and anger mingled, a tempest on the cusp of awakening. Her mind wrestled with the biting question. Was she truly invisible, a pawn beneath the gilded throne? A raven's caw shattered the stillness, its black wings cutting against the deep reds and golds that adorned the vaulted ceilings. It was a harbinger, a call to wary vigilance amid beauty and menace intertwined. Alina's gaze followed the bird as it took flight, a symbol of secrets poised to unravel, of impending doom and hidden truths. She paused before a narrow staircase, its shadowed steps descending into the servants' quarters, a realm far from royal eyes. The faint glow of candlelight flickered below, suggesting the quiet resilience of those trapped between worlds. Her heart stirred a flicker of defiance, a whispered promise not to be broken. Her reflection caught in the polished brass of a handrail, a ghostly image of herself, caught between light and shadow, hope and despair. Those piercing green eyes held a storm yet to break, a resilience masked by sorrow but burning vividly beneath. Her voice, when it came, was mere breath, a fragile vow carried on the still air. I am not forgotten. Not yet. The corridor's shadows closed gently behind her, the distant sound of crowing ravens threading the somber melody of fate and the fragile promise of resistance. Alina turned away, stepping into the dim corridor where secrets whispered and futures flickered uncertainly, the fire of her resolve kindling amid the cold stone walls. The scene lingered on the flickering candlelight, casting long, wavering shadows, a visual echo of the peril and hope entwined within the palace's very heart, a moment suspended between despair and the first breath of rebellion. Alina's hands, dulled by the cold weight of despair, moved rhythmically over worn fabrics as her small chamber breathed in the muted glow of flickering candlelight. The distant murmur of the closed ballroom echoed faintly through the palace walls, a haunting symphony of polished veneer masking ruthless ambition. Shadows stretched across the rough wooden floorboards, entangling with the lace of her simple gown, and the scent of melted wax mingled with the faint perfume of apple blossoms from the garden beyond. Sweat beaded her pale forehead as her fingers brushed beneath the queen's ornate dresser, unsettling a layer of dust disturbed by time and forgotten secrets. There, nestled in the dim recess, lay a faded leather-bound diary with a rusted lock, its cracked spine whispering promises of truths long sealed. As she drew the book into the candlelight, the delicate, golden clasp caught fire in a crimson flicker like a red rose igniting hope amidst the cavernous gloom. Each breath was a measured defiance against the crushing shame still embedded in her chest. The diary felt like a living emblem, locked yet inviting, burdened yet vital, a conduit between her silent yearning and the roaring world she dared only observe from afar. Her auburn hair shimmered softly, cascading around her shoulders as if to shield this newfound secret, this fragile seed of rebellion. Alina's emerald eyes traced the initial calligraphy on the yellowed page, revealing a tapestry of forbidden love and defiance penned by a hand long vanished beneath royal duty and silence. The voices of past courtiers echoed within these fragile writings, tales resonating like mirrors reflecting her own tangled heart, a clandestine dance of passion and peril etched into ink and paper. Outside, atop the palace battlements, The distant cawing of a raven sliced through the velvet night, a dark herald entwined with omen and revelation. It circled once, wings stretched wide, then vanished into the shadows, leaving only the haunting echo of possibility and peril. The diary's pages flickered with secrets, whispers of love that dared to exist beyond crowns and class, of souls entwined beneath the weight of protocol and power. Alina's skin prickled as images unfolded in her mind's eye. Stolen glances behind silken curtains, truths smuggled through narrow corridors, and hearts beating defiantly against the iron bars of fate. A soft knock at the door jolted her from immersion. The servant's cautious voice whispered inquiringly. Alina hastily closed the diary, its lock clicking like a solemn vow, and tucked it beneath her gown's folds, a secret shield in a world that threatened to devour vulnerability. The door slid open, spilling muted light across the chamber, and for a fleeting moment, Alina felt the weight of countless eyes watching from afar, not just the court, but history itself, poised on the edge of change. Settling against the wall, diary in lap, she drew a deep breath, a slow, defiant intake charged with the first true flicker of strength. Her gaze lifted beyond the gilded bars of her confinement to the stars burning quietly in the velvet night, a silent promise that her story was just beginning. The camera pulled slowly away from the intimate glow of her chamber, its warm light blazing like a silent declaration amid the dark expanse, the fragile diary a beacon of hidden truths and newfound hope, a red rose blossoming defiantly beneath an unforgiving sky. The cold light of dawn filtered through the heavy velvet drapes of Alina's modest chamber, casting elongated shadows that stretched like silent watchmen across the polished wood floor. She sat by the narrow window, the air thick with the remnants of night's chill and the scent of damp stone from the palace gardens. In her lap rested the locked diary, rough leather softened by time, the weight of its secrets tangible beneath her fingertips. Her fingers trembled as she traced the golden clasp, the intricate filigree catching the early light in a fleeting blaze of promise and forbidden mystery. Outside, the palace stirred with the distant clatter of servants' footsteps and the soft murmur of morning prayers echoing faintly from the chapel's high arches. As the castle awoke around her, Alina wrestled with the embers of shame that clung to her from the banquet. Yet beneath the suffocating veil of humiliation, a spark flickered, a fierce, unyielding ember that refused to be smothered. She drew a deep breath, the air cool and crisp against her skin, and summoned the courage to fit the small, ancient key she had found into the diary's lock. With a hesitant click, the clasp gave way, revealing yellowed pages filled with elegant handwriting and unseen truths. The first words swam in the dim morning light, a tale of royal passion entwined with forbidden love, whispered confessions penned under the watchful gaze of history. Each line trembled with the echo of past heartaches and defiance, a mirror reflecting Alina's own yearning and concealed desires. A sudden gust rattled the windowpane, stirring the delicate lace curtains and carrying with it the distant, mournful call of a raven somewhere in the palace roof, a crowing omen that seemed to remind her of the stakes now unfolding. The distant banquet hall bells began to toll, a solemn rhythm marking the passage of time and the relentless march of duty. Alina's green eyes widened as the stories within the diary unfolded, secrets of love forbidden by crown and class, courageous souls who dared defy the strictures of power. Her pulse quickened with each revelation, the past breathing life into her own fragile resolve. A fleeting shadow passed beneath the window, a masked courtier's hurried step, or perhaps a watcher from the king's own guard, reminding Alina that curiosity came at a price, and her every move was now shrouded in risk. Her lips parted in a whispered vow, delicate yet resolute, "I will unveil your story. And my own." The camera lingered on the diary's pages as autumn leaves rustled softly outside, a subtle symphony of beginnings and betrayals. The light faded gently, a delicate invitation into the forbidden realms of whispered truths and the perilous pursuit of love beneath the glinting crown. The story held in the heavy silence beneath the crackling candlelight, the fragile promise of rebellion stirring against the cold, unyielding walls of tradition and power. Moonlight spilled like liquid silver onto the palace's ancient stones, turning the gardens into a maze of shadows and shifting shapes. Elena slipped quietly through the labyrinthine corridors, the cold night air biting through her delicate gown, her heart pounding louder than the soft footsteps of the guards patrolling nearby. The locked diary, heavy with secrets and potential dreams, was pressed tightly beneath her cloak, a fragile talisman against the suffocating weight of oppression. She moved with purpose now, though uncertainty twisted in her Gouda mixture of the thrill of discovery and the gnawing fear of discovery. Each echoing footfall behind polished walls felt like a chorus of impending doom, every whispered breeze a warning. The marble halls bore silent witness to the centuries of duty and deceit, the rich velvets of tapestries sagging under the weight of untold stories. Elena felt herself swallowed whole, a lone rebellion hidden in plain sight. A sudden rustly guard's silhouette cut sharply against the candlelight ahead. Her breath caught, muscles coiling to flee or fight. Then, in the flicker of an instant, a figure emerged, a courtier with eyes softened by sympathy and shadows. With a silent gesture, he drew her into the alcove out of sight, his voice a whisper thick with urgency and caution. "You must be careful. The king's eyes are everywhere. This diary is aflame. It will burn with those who dare to hold it." Elena's pulse thundered not just from fear but from a nascent conviction. "I must know. I must understand. Even if it costs me everything," she whispered, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The courtier's gaze bore into her, a flicker of respect mingled with sorrow. "Trust no one but me. The path you walk is perilous." Her nod was barely perceptible. The diary felt like a heartbeat pressed against her chest, alive and demanding. The moon waned, but her resolve waxed fierce and unyielding. Days folded into nights as she delved deeper, learning of loves shackled by duty, secrets buried beneath layers of gold and bones. She stole moments alone within quiet chambers, the scribbled words of forbidden romances illuminating the long shadows of the palace which, like her own dreams, were often hidden beneath masks of power and deception. But secrecy bore its toll. Whispers began a shadow at her side, a glance too sharp among the servants, the cooling glance of Prince Cedric when their eyes last met. The world she entered was fraught with danger, the facades of smiles concealing blades sharpened by jealousy and fear. One evening, at the edge of the rose garden where crimson petals drifted like spilled blood in the moonlight, Elena stood alone, breath visible in the chill air. The locked diary clasped in her hands seemed suddenly heavier, burdened with the weight of choices yet made. Her reflection caught in a still fountain, the image fragmented, her green eyes luminous pools of quiet defiance and fragile hope. A distant crow's call cleaved the night, sharp and resonant, as if the ravens whispered warnings only she could hear. Elena's whisper broke the silence, a vow born of both fear and courage: "I will not be silenced." The garden's shadows seemed to lean closer, listening. The scene faded slowly, the flickering roses beside the water glowing faintly red, a symbol of passion, peril, and the first steps toward impossible freedom. The moon hung low, its silver light casting long, cold shadows through the labyrinthine corridors of the palace. Elena moved silently, heart pounding with every step as the diary's worn leather cover pressed close against her chest. Each word within it was a firestorm of secret longing and forbidden passion, echoes of past rebellions that mirrored her own deep yearning. Her breath caught in the quiet hush of the queen's chambers, where a concealed door beckoned, half hidden behind a heavy tapestry of crimson and gold. Elena's fingers traced its intricate carvings, a heartbeat away from unveiling mysteries too dangerous for daylight. But the palace was alive with watchful eyes and whispered suspicions. Every corner breathed risk. Suddenly, heavy footsteps thundered closer, a sharp, commanding pivot that foretold betrayal or salvation. The palace guards, stern and unforgiving, emerged from the shadows, their faces carved from stone. Elena's heart seized in icy terror as she clutched the diary tighter, praying that its secrets might shield her from ruin. A narrow escape ensued, fleeting and desperate. A flicker of movement emerged, a courtier with eyes softened by sympathy, gestures silent but urgent. He guided her through hidden passages, the thundering footfalls fading as they slipped deeper into the palace's hidden veins. Yet, as the warmth of safety teased the edges of her resolve, doubt gnawed relentlessly. Who could she trust when power and deception danced so dangerously close? Later, hidden away in a quiet courtyard bathed in the fragile glow of candlelight, Alina's fingers trembled as she revealed the diary's existence to Prince Cedric. His eyes, veiled by shadow, softened momentarily, an unspoken bond kindling between Tama, shared understanding of love's peril and defiance against the suffocating bounds of their worlds. "I've read what you have." Cedric's voice was hushed yet resolute, carrying the weight of unspoken rebellion. "Your courage kindles my hope, a secret we both must guard fiercely." Alina's gaze locked with his, a mixture of fear and fierce determination igniting within her. Their secret intertwined, a fragile flame in a chamber of shadows, against the watchful gaze of King Aldric's unyielding throne. Yet, a raven's cry pierced the night, a chilling herald echoing from the palace towers, foretelling the storms gathering on the horizon. The crowing raven, a grim sentinel, seemed to remind Alina that every step toward love was also a step toward danger, every heartbeat shadowed by the impending loom of betrayal. As dawn reached its tentative fingers through stained glass windows, Alina clasped the diary once more, its worn surfaces seemingly alive with the breath of past and future entwined. A quiet vow escaped her lips: "We shall not be silenced." The camera lingered on the diary, then rose to capture Alina's silhouette framed by the rising Suna figure, both fragile and unyielding, poised at the cusp of transformation. The heavy velvet curtains stirred as a breeze whispered promises of rebellion and hope. The scene faded on the soft tolling of distant bells, an echo of the palace's heartbeat and the first breath of a fight that would challenge tradition, power, and the rigid chains of class itself. The heavy wooden doors of the queen's bedchamber slammed shut with a resonant finality that lingered in the damp and flickering candlelight of Alina's quarters. Outside, the palace hummed quietly under the thick shroud of night, but here the silence was suffocating, pressing against her skin like the cold stone walls themselves. Her breath came slow, uneven, as shadow and sorrow pooled in her green eyes. The mocking laughter from the grand hall still echoed in her mind, whispers of scandal and disdain hastening her fall from the fragile grace she had clung to. The courtiers' sly smile, the pointed glances, the scornful hum of nobles turning their backs all carved deep wounds she did not know how to tend. Her fingers trembled slightly as she rested the now tarnished diary on the wooden table, the leather cover cracked and worn from hours of desperate clutching. The secrets contained within, once a beacon of hope and defiance, now seemed a cursed dangerous flame exposing vulnerabilities better kept hidden. Outside, a raven's harsh call pierced the night air, its cry echoing through the vaulted corridors like a dark omen. The bird's black wings cast fleeting shadows over the gold-framed portraits lining the hallway, eyes in painted faces seeming to watch Alina's unraveling with cold disinterest. Her reflection in a cracked mirror caught her unguarded, a young woman caught between two worlds, her simple gown heavy with the stains of a court that would neither embrace nor forget her. The glow of the candle flickered, casting half her face into darkness, as if the very light faltered before the weight of her despair. A sudden knock on the door startled Hera sharp, commanding rap resonating through the chamber. Alina's heart seized, but the chamberlain's soft voice filtered through, a summons to the queen herself. The moment was jagged, a fractured promise of fate and judgment entwined. With measured steps, Alina approached the door, each breath a battle to steady the tempest within. Her hand lingered briefly on the carved wood, a tactile reminder of the rigid order awaiting her. Beyond lay not just the queen but the culmination of her fears, the powerful, imperious ruler who weighed love as weakness and whose decree could dismantle her very existence. As the door creaked open, the candlelight spilled out, illuminating not just the path ahead but the unraveling of Alina's delicate hope. The scene held on her resolute figure silhouetted against the closing door, the heavy silence engulfing the room as her fate teetered precipitously on the edge of darkness. The faint rustle of silk and the sharp crow of ravens outside the palace that night became more than mere sounds. They were heralds of a world shifting beneath delicate feet, a world where love and power collided in a maelstrom of sacrifice and defiance. Elena stood at the precipice, a solitary figure enveloped in the shadows of a kingdom unwilling to bend. Her whispered breath, barely audible, marked the fragile boundary between surrender and resistance. What am I to become? The flickering candle guttered once more, plunging the chamber into looming darkness, a silence heavy as the weight of a crown yet unclaimed. The city beyond the palace walls was a cold and merciless place, cloaked in the fog of a harsh autumn evening. Elena moved silently through narrow, cobblestone streets slick with rain, her worn shoes clicking softly against the uneven stones. The once vibrant auburn of her hair was dulled by dirt and despair, a stark contrast to the vivid green of her eyes that now carried only a hollow light. Each step she took echoed not just against the empty alley walls but within the cavernous emptiness of her heart. Night had fully descended, swallowing sound and hope alike. The paltry glow of lanterns was feeble against the dense darkness that wrapped the world in desolation. She shivered, a coldness seeping from the bone-deep void left by the loss of her status, her dignity, her future within the palace's gilded cage. The soft, mournful cry of a raven cut through the silence, a harbinger of doom and a reminder of the secrets that had betrayed her. Elena's breath came in shallow plumes, dissipating quickly into the chill night air. Her hands trembled, clutching a ragged shawl tighter as if to hold together the shards of a life shattered by cruel fate. The muffled sounds of distant revelry at a nearby tavern were a bitter reminder that joy continued elsewhere, indifferent to her suffering. She paused by a filthy puddle, staring down at her distorted reflection, the green eyes that once sparkled with youthful fire now clouded by pain and uncertainty. The water trembled with the occasional drop of rain, rippling like the fragile threads of hope now stretched to breaking. She reached out, fingertips brushing the cold surface, but the image disturbed and fragmented, offering no solace. Lost, she whispered, the word warbling fragile and broken on her lips. There was no answer but the whisper of the wind winding through the narrow passage. Her surroundings faded into a blur as she continued walking, a ghost among shadows, burdened by the weight of exile and betrayal. The city's sounds grew distant and hollow, swallowed by an encompassing silence that mirrored the emptiness within. Elena finally stopped beneath a crumbling archway where ivy clawed desperately at cracked stones, clinging to what remained of forgotten grandeur. Here, she sank to her knees, the cold seeping into her skin as tears blurred her vision. Clasped in her hands was the locked diary, its leather binding worn and pages trembling with secrets untold. The diary was a relic of truth and rebellion, now a fragile tether to a past filled with forbidden love and dangerous hopes. Yet, in this desolate moment, it seemed only to echo the futility of dreams crushed under the weight of power and prejudice. As the first lightning of dawn bled into the sky, Elena's sobs softened into silence. The world lay mute and indifferent around her, the crowing of ravens replaced by the unyielding quiet of despair. She rested her head against the cold stone, her body curled into itself, a small figure engulfed by a vast, uncaring night. In this silence, all that remained was a whispered breath, a fragile surrender. The camera lingered on her bowed form, fading slowly to black as the city woke unaware to the depth of loss concealed in its shadows, a solitary soul abandoned, caught between the past's cruel chains and an uncertain dawn. The cold night wrapped around Elena like a shroud as she sat huddled in the shadowed corner of a dimly lit alley far from the palace's baroque splendor. Ragged breaths misted in the frigid air as her fingers clutched tightly around a folded letter, the delicate parchment worn but alive with the touch of the prince who had once offered a glimmer of sanctuary. Its words, scrawled in elegant hands, whispered promises of hope and an unspoken bond that had withstood whispered threats and dangerous divides. The alley was silent but for the distant echo of hooves and the mournful cry of a raven, its dark wings cutting silently above the tall, shadowed buildings that towered like sentinels. That raven's cry, sharp and piercing, rekindled a spark deep within her, a reminder that even in the darkest of nights, the cycle of despair and renewal turned inexorably. Alina's eyes, swollen from countless tears yet still fiercely luminous, lifted toward the heavens where soft stars pierced the obsidian sky. Amidst the suffocating weight of loss, the fragile ember of resilience flickered within a fragile yet defiant promise. Her gaze fell upon the letter once more, and in that moment, memories of warmth returned, the laughter stolen beneath moonlit windows, the secret glances shared amid the constricting court, the touch of a hand against hers that defied the iron chains of duty and decree. The rustling of silken gowns and distant footsteps echoed faintly in her mind's eara reminder of the world she was exiled from, yet also of the love that had quietly, stubbornly endured. Somewhere beyond the cold stone and creeping darkness, the palace pulsed with life and conflict, and she was not yet consigned to oblivion. She traced a trembling finger over the faded script, a whispered vow escaping her cracked lips: "You are not alone." "Neither am I." The worn diary, carefully kept in the folds of her cloak, seemed to pulse with quiet encouragement, its locked pages a testament to the secrets and truths that might yet change the tides of fate. A sliver of dawn crept over the horizon, bleeding soft rose and gold into the pre-dawn sky. That fragile light fractured the darkness like a promise slowly unfurling, silent, tentative, but undeniable. Alina rose, steadied by the faint glow that promised a new chapter. The chill of the night clung to her, but within, a warmth began to kindle, fragile like the red rose petals scattered at her feet during that fateful banquet, symbols of passion and peril intertwined. In the growing light, surrounded by the quiet watch of ivy-clad walls and the whispered breaths of the waking city, she set her jaw with newfound resolve. The scars and shadows behind her were a testament to battles endured, but ahead lay the possibility of transformation. The camera held on her silhouette against the breaking dawn, a solitary figure poised on the threshold of renewal, as the faint but steady call of a raven echoed once Morea's solemn promise that from despair, hope could rise again. The grand hall of the palace, once a place of calculated elegance and suffocating oppression, now held a palpable stillness and silent space pregnant with change. Alina stood at its center, shadows flickering across her face as dawn spilled muted golden hues through stained glass and along gilded pillars. Her gown, once a symbol of her innocence, was now tinged with the faint scarlet of resolve, the fabric whispering softly as she adjusted her stance. The tumult of the past had left her battered, yet beneath the cracks of her fragile exterior, something unseen had awakened, a quiet strength, a flickering ember of hope. Her green eyes, luminous and piercing, reflected the dawn, an unspoken acknowledgement that her journey toward liberation had begun. The heavy wooden doors, which once signified her exile and submission, now stood slightly ajar, hinting at the dawn of a new chapter. Her fingertips brushed the cold, ornate handle, the first tangible step into her own future. In that silent moment, she looked upward, her gaze meeting the painted faces of angels and saints, symbols of divine judgment and eternal hope. A whisper escaped her, soft but resolute. "This is only the beginning." In her hand, she clutched a small, worn token, a piece of her past, a fragment of her secret diary, now a symbol of her hidden truths. The once burdened volume had become a talisman of resilience, whispering that even beneath layers of despair and fear, power and change brewed quietly. The faint sounds of awakening life seeped into the hall, the distant chirping of crickets outside the palace walls, the rustling of leaves stirred by the early breeze. These mundane murmurs stood in stark contrast to the tumult she had endured, yet they embodied her transformative hope. A soft glow began to fill the space as sunlight slowly crept through the stained glass, casting a kaleidoscope of broken light across the polished stones. It was an awakening, not only of the day but of her spirit, a dawn that promised that even in the deepest shadows, light persisted. Alina inhaled deeply, filling her lungs with the scent of renewal, faint aroma of roses that had once symbolized danger now transformed into a token of possibility. Her shoulders straightened, the weight of despair eased slightly, replaced by cautious optimism. Eyes closed, she felt the warmth of the rising sun on her face, a gentle reminder that hope, fragile yet enduring, could blossom from the darkest night. Her hand trembled only briefly before steadying, the quiet resolve shining through the dawning dawn. A solitary falcon soared high above, its wings cutting through an awakening sky, a fleeting emblem of freedom and the unyielding spirit within her. The camera slowly pulled away, capturing her silhouette against the luminous horizon, an image of quiet power, poised on the brink of rebirth. The scene faded into a delicate silence, a testament that the future was uncertain but filled with the faint glow of hope and the promise of change, waiting patiently behind the horizon. The grand hall of the palace shimmered with the golden hue of dawn, a stark contrast to the darkness that had shrouded Alina's spirit. She stood at the center, her figure both tentative and resolute, illuminated by the first rays filtering through stained glass windows. Her gown, once a symbol of her subjugation, now bore the faint shimmer of newfound strength. She wore it as armor, a silent testament to her decision to confront her past. The heavy doors, which had once symbolized her exile and silence, now stood ajar, revealing a path she dared to take. With measured steps, she approached the throne, her gaze steady and unwavering. The silence hung thick as blood, filled with the collective weight of the court's secrets, fears, and unspoken truths. She paused before the king, her voice now calm but piercing, like a blade sheathed and yet ready to strike. "Your Majesty, I bring the truth, not as an act of defiance but as a testament to love's enduring power." A hush fell upon the assembled courtiers, shadows flickering across their faces, masks of power and deception. The king's eyes, once filled with insecurity, flickered with a flicker of doubt, as if the weight of centuries of authority was finally pressing down upon his fragile facade. The diary reveals stories of love, courage, and defiance beyond the confines of duty and class, Alina continued, her voice gaining strength. "We are more than titles or bloodlines. Love is not weakness, it is the very core of our humanity." The courtier behind her nodded sharply, a silent sign that her words resonated. The crowd's collective breath was held as Alina's gaze met the king's, a moment suspended fraught with tension and possibility. A long, heavy silence ensued, broken only by her words echoing softly in the chamber. "It is time for this truth to be spoken aloud." The king's expression shifted, the insecure mask slipping, revealing the flickering flame of understanding. The courtiers exchanged uncertain glances, caught between centuries of suppression and the dawn of a new era. Light flooded the hall as the chamber doors finally swung open further, revealing the rising sun outside, its rays piercing the darkness, illuminating the path of change. Alina's stance was a quiet defiance, a gesture that summoned the winds of transformation. The scene lingered on her silhouette amid the blaze of early morning, her figure both fragile and unyielding, standing at the threshold of an uncharted future. The palace, once a fortress of silence, was now bathed in the golden promise of truth and the resolve that love, no matter how forbidden, could carve out a new dawn. The grand hall, once cloaked in shadows of treachery, now burst into a luminous dawn that spilled through stained glass, casting a kaleidoscope of colors onto the marble floors. Alina stood at the center of it all, her figure bathed in the gentle glow of morning light, her gown shimmering with newfound resolve. Her eyes, once clouded with despair, now blazed with clarity, a reflection of the fierce rebirth within. In her grasp, she held the diary. Its worn pages and cracked leather symbolized the secrets she had unearthed, the truths she had dared to face. Today, they were no longer shackles but keys to a future she would forge on her own terms. Her shoulders were straight, her chin lifted, a queen of her own uncharted destiny. The walls, which once echoed with whispers of deceit and suppression, now echoed with silent applause, an audience of shadows and light bearing witness to her transformation. The distant sound of courtly murmurs dimmed into a hush, as if the very air recognized the revolutionary power of her courage. She took a tentative step forward, the stones beneath her feet a reminder that her journey had been arduous, yet her spirit unbroken. Each stride was deliberately a vow of defiance and hope. Her gaze turned upward, meeting the rising sun, a celestial crown of gold and crimson that crowned her victory. A silent wind caressed her face, whispering secrets of old bonds shattered, chains broken, and love reclaimed. The motifs of the crown and red rose intertwined in her mind, symbols of her triumph over duty's confines and the sacredness of authentic love. Her voice, calm yet unwavering, cut through the dawn's serenity. The dawn belongs to those who dare to love, unshackled by fear. Her words, silent but potent, resonated through the sacred space, a testament that her true battle had only just begun. As the camera panned out, Alina's silhouette, both delicate and formidable, became an emblem of a woman reborn. The luminous horizon beckoned her into a future free of shadows, a testament to the enduring power of faith, courage, and the relentless pursuit of true love. The early morning light seeped softly through the stained glass of the palace tower, casting delicate rainbows upon the marble floor where Alina stood, calm and contemplative. Her gaze was fixed on the horizon, where the sun was beginning to crest, spilling luminous golds and pinks across the sky, a perfect mirror to her own awakening. The palace, once echoing with secrets and shadowed fears, now felt bathed in a gentle warmth, an unspoken promise of peace. Her hands, still trembling from the tumult of days past, now held only a single, delicate object, the red rose. Its petals, vibrant and alive, swayed slightly in the breeze, a symbol of love, defiance, and resilience. The rose had become her silent companion, whispering that beauty could flourish even amid chaos. Alina's path had been arduous, marked by betrayal, loss, and moments when hope seemed a distant memory. But beneath the layers of pain, a quiet strength had taken root, growing quietly in the depths of her soul. She had learned to accept the past, recognize her wounds, and embrace her newfound clarity. The palace's opulence still shimmered around her, but now it no longer held her prisoner. She stepped forward slowly, each movement a deliberate act of courage. Her gown, simple yet elegant, caught the first light, symbolizing her transition from shadow to dawn. The grandeur of her surroundings contrasted sharply with the peaceful resolve within, an enduring testament that love's true power lies in forgiveness, acceptance, and the courage to walk into the unknown. A gentle breeze caressed her face, carrying with it the scent of blooming flowers and the promise of renewal. Beyond the palace walls, the city was awakening, its heartbeat steady, unyielding, yet Alina knew her heart beat to a different rhythm now. One of hope, strength, and a quiet understanding that her journey was only beginning, not ending. She raised her hand, slowly, and placed the rose at the edge of the balustrade. Her lips curled into a faint, serene smile, a gesture of farewell to the shadows and a greeting to the future. As the sun stretched higher, bathing her in golden light, Alina turned toward the unfolding day, her silhouette poised against the dawn, symbol of a woman reborn. The camera pulled back gradually, capturing her figure against the expansive horizon, a timeless portrait of peace, resilience, and the unbreakable spirit of love amid shifting tides. Her journey of pain had led her to a place of quiet acceptance. Her eyes shimmered with the promise that even in darkness, hope and love could bloom, eternal and unyielding. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft amber glow over the palace gardens, Alina and Cedric walked hand in hand along the winding stone path. The air was thick with the scent of blooming roses, symbols of love and danger, now intertwined in a silent promise of hope. Their footsteps were gentle but purposeful, a quiet affirmation of their victory over the shadows that once threatened to consume them. Alina's fingers brushed lightly against Cedric's, a subtle reminder that their bond was forged not just in rebellion but in acceptance and unspoken truth that love, in its purest form, could transcend the weight of worlds. The tapestry of their past struggles faded into a distant memory, replaced by the tender warmth of the present moment. The palace in the distance shimmered in the dying light, a fortress of tradition slowly awakening to change. Inside, whispers of reform stirred through marbled halls, the echoes of old masks falling away, revealing genuine faces full of hope and forgiveness. Alina's heart, long battered by fear and doubt, now beat with a steady rhythm and anthem of resilience. She paused, turning to face Cedric, her green eyes luminous with quiet strength. "We are no longer prisoners of duty. Love has rewritten the rules." He smiled softly, a mirror of her newfound peace. "Together, we've broken the chains woven by fear and societal expectation." A gentle wind swept through the gardens, animating the roses, a flicker of life amid the stillness, a symbol of renewal blooming from the ruins of betrayal and regret. Elena reached out, plucking a single crimson petal, pressing it close to her heart, a relic of their journey and a beacon of hope. In that moment, serene, resolute, fair silhouettes against the twilight sky became a testament to the triumph of love over duty. A distant bell tolled, not as a signal of doom but as a herald of dawn, the promise of a new era where hearts could soar freely, unshackled by class or creed. The camera pulled back slowly, capturing the tender scene, their figures intertwined, walking into the future with unshakable resolve, bathed in the golden glow of hope and the enduring light of love. That final image lingered, emblematic of the journey from darkness into dawn, a story of hearts finally finding peace amidst the shifting tides of change. The dawn softly illuminated the palace's eastern terrace, casting a gentle glow over a scene born of quiet triumph and solemn reflection. Elena and Cedric, hand in hand, stood amidst blooming roses, their figures silhouetted against the rising sun, a symbol of love's enduring bloom in defiance of centuries of tradition. The air carried a faint perfume of blossoms, intertwined with a lingering sense of serenity and unspoken promise. Elena's gaze drifted over the sprawling gardens, where the early light caressed each petal and leaf, awakening the world anew. Her face was calm, lips gently parted in a faint, knowing smile, not of conquest, but of acceptance. The weight they had carried, secrets, fears, threats, had begun to dissolve in this moment of profound peace. Behind them, the palace's grand facade shimmered as if responding to the dawn's gentle magic, a testament to a society beginning to shift, to loosen its chains of rigid duty and disparity. The past's shadows still clung to some corners of their hearts, but now they felt a fragile light seep through, promising reconciliation and hope. Elena, her auburn hair softly illuminated, reached out delicately, her fingertips brushing the petals of a lone rose, a gift from her journey, a symbol of love's resilience and transformation. Her eyes, piercing and green, reflected the first true peace she'd known in a world plagued by injustice. Cedric looked at her with fierce tenderness, a silent vow reaffirmed in the silence of the morn. The future stretched before them, uncertain yet undeniably theirs, crafted by love, forged by courage, and illuminated by the dawn of hope. The camera lingered on their figures against the lush backdrop, their shadows stretching long and intertwined on the stone terrace, a visual echo of unbreakable bonds and new beginnings. A single crow's feather floated softly down, landing amidst the roses, a quiet token of the past shadows receding. As the sun climbed higher, casting a warm glow over the sprawling estate, silence settled, calm, vast, comforting. The world held its breath, witnessing the gentle victory of love and understanding, the dawn of a new era painted in the colors of hope, peace, and acceptance. What secrets would your diary reveal? Share your thoughts.